what if they stand up? So we call this the dummy sweep. There's usually a pretty common name that goes universal throughout jiu-jitsu for certain moves, but you'll also notice that gyms will call certain moves different names. So for us, we call this a dummy sweep at our school, and the kids love it. So one, she's doing the correct thing, right? And she's doing the correct thing where I'm trying to break her posture, and she's continuing her posture backwards. Take advantage for the hip bump sweep, right? I try to break her posture, and she lifts her butt up. Man, I got the flower sweep, or she breaks her posture on her own to grab my head. I go for the flower sweep. But what if she's like, I don't like this, I just need to get up and I get out of here. So she takes the option to stand up. When she stands up and I keep my guard closed, I'm just going to grab behind her ankles. I'm going to launch my hips forward like this. I'm going to rise up in an S-mounted position, or I guess like an S-walk position, and take my mount. Okay? So let's cover that again. All right, so I'm in a closed guard position. She stands up. I'm going to let her stand up. I'm going to grab the ankles. And so now she can't take a step back. So if I didn't grab the ankles, I just push forward, she's going to move backwards, and she's going to start working on other stuff. If I get the ankles, now she can't step back. So now as my hips move forward and her hips move backwards, she's going to trip. Boom. And now I'm going to shift. I'm not going to go straight forward. I'm going to kind of like shift my hips forward. And then I'm going to end up in this mounted position right here. And so let's do it on the other side so they can kind of see that S-walk forward. So she's going to stand up. I'm going to grab her ankles. I'm going to launch her forward as she falls back. I'm going to launch my hips above her hips as I slide my hips forward. And you see how my leg, and when I'd say an S-mount, let me just show you guys real quick. This is like an S-mount or an S-walk or an S-sit right here where my legs make an S. Okay? And this is a very important position in jiu-jitsu as we transfer through different positions to advance, and this is one of them. So, let's get good. Boom. So I S-mount, I launch my hips above her hips, and I establish my mounted position. Okay? So, now let's talk about what happens when you don't launch your hips above her hips. So she stands up. I grab her ankles, I launch her forward, and I just casually am trying to get up. She's just going to get her hips higher than my hips. Just like kind of back to my closed guard. Oh. So I try to raise my hips above, and she beats me to that position. I'm back to a closed guard. So I could have gotten a sweep and mount. Instead, I did all that work, and we're back in the closed guard. So let's demonstrate that one more time. So she gets up. Oh, trying to get up. She wins that battle. Does that make sense, guys? So I have to make sure as I do the move, as she hits the ground, I'm launching my hips above her hips, so that way I win that battle. Now let's talk about a couple nuances of that. As she goes to stand up, my favorite one is to keep my guard closed, so that way when we hit the ground, my hips are already moving on top of her hips. But you'll notice sometimes she'll be strong. She'll be leaning forward and I can't get her forward. I have to break my guard a little bit in order to get that. But notice my hips are further away from her hips now. So I have to be extra cognizant and aware to do that extra push forward to beat her to that mounted position. And you'll see a lot of people like to launch somebody into outer space, right? So go ahead. And they get stuck right here, and so they put their feet, which is very powerful because I can lift Jade right here, right? I can launch her forward. But look how far my hips are away from her hips. All right, for me to launch forward over her hips. The likelihood of her just getting back up right here is very high. And then I was like, oh, that was for nothing. Maybe it looks cool for a second, but it didn't end me anywhere where I needed to be. Right? And in jiu-jitsu, in the martial arts especially, there's a quote that says, the more you know, the less you have to use. And you want to be the most efficient, right? And that's what being a martial artist is. It's being the most efficient way of technically taking someone's life. But in the jiu-jitsu world, the most efficient way of dominating position and getting to submissions, right? And so even though that might look cool, it's a lot of effort, but it might not result in the right thing that you want, which is a dominant position. Okay? So when you're doing that kind of stuff, I would only recommend doing something like that if you're going to end up in like a leg lock position, which is not what we're going over right now, but just to give you an idea. As she goes up, boom, I compromise my guard to push her up and through. I might use that to start locking in some sort of leg entanglement that I am comfortable with, because I'm setting the tone for that. And I already have her feet locked up. But right now, we're at the beginning, so don't worry about that. I just kind of want to make you aware of it, just touch and go. But our goal in these courses right now are to focus on a few main things, okay?